Welcome back to the channel. Wow, there was a lot of views on the last video, so there were a lot of things I didn't really clarify that I should probably go into a little more detail about when you're buying a house on probate. Also, maybe some other ways in my area and a lot of rural areas that you can buy a property without a lot of cash. First, let's talk about the probate. Now, in my area, my particular piece of property that I bought, it is unrestricted. That means there are no building codes. That's a plus. You don't have inspectors coming out if you build an addition. You can pretty much do anything you want. I think the only exception to that rule would be the septic bugs, the septic system. I think you should get that inspected anyway. That's something that's very important, especially when you go to sell your property, although I don't think anybody even asked about it here. I do know there's counties, the next county over, the rules are different. So before you look at a property, you need to find out, is it unrestricted? What's all involved there? How strict are they with this and that? There's a lot of things to consider. Like I said, in my particular case, man, I could build a 20-story mansion here and nobody would care. Probably get a lot of looks because, well, ain't nobody around here got a 20-story mansion. So now, when I first bought the house, and there are links on my channel and you can follow from the last 4 years of me working on this. This place was in terrible condition. I gutted the entire inside and pretty much started over. And what I did, and if you're going to buy a property that is not livable like mine was, at least not for a while, you can buy a camper. A lot of people do this now. They buy a camper and they put that on the land. As long as you have a foundation of a house, I know here they will put in an electrical pole, is what I did. I put in a temporary electric pole and I ran all my power from that to my fifth wheel that I had. So there I was able to live in that, and believe me, I lived in it for 3 winters. It was not fun. They are not warm in the winter, but I managed to keep it cozy. You can keep them warm. And in the meantime, and I was working full time. So on the weekends and at nights, I'd work on the house. Now, money was a problem because I didn't have a lot of it. So what I would do is 1 week I might buy, fortunately where I live, there are a lot of sawmills. We can get cedar lumber pretty cheap. So that's what I did. I'd buy cedar planks for $2 a board. I'd get a 6-inch by 8-foot piece of cedar and I covered my walls in it. Now I'm in the process of removing a lot of that because I'm tired of looking at it. But it was a cheap way to get a nice looking wall, and it was the inexpensive way to do it at the time. So, and then plumbing, all the plumbing needed to come out of the house. All the electrical, I ripped that out. It was just, mice had gotten in there from it being vacant. That's something you really need to look at really hard when you buy a place, is what is the electrical like? What is the plumbing like? And it didn't take much to discover. All I had to do on this house was open the service panel door and see that wired up mess. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to attempt to use the existing electrical. So that all got ripped out. And then what I did is I ran two lines into the house. I just popped them through a window, and on the end of that line I had a 4-outlet box, so I could run power. I could run power tools, whatever, lights in the house. And actually, I used that for the first couple of years before I started wiring the permanent electric. So that's something else you can do. So when you have your temporary pole put in, you're going to put up just a regular service panel, and then you can run lines into your house. Now, if you buy in an area where it's restricted, then you might have an issue with that. So that's why you need to check into things like that. But in my case, nobody bothers me here. The only thing that happens, and this is another question that come up, what is the, I live in Arkansas, so what is the property tax? Well, they have what's called the homesteader's credit, and you get so much. What they do is they come assess your property. Okay, let's just say your property, if you were to put it on the market, you would get $50,000. They're most likely going to assess that from $10,000 to $15,000. It's way under what your asking price would be. So in my case, in this house, and they know what you paid for it, it was only assessed at like $6,000. So the most I've ever paid in property tax is, I think, $120. That's a year. But the homestead credit now is like $245. And if you are a disabled vet like I am, 100% disabled vet, you don't pay any property tax in Arkansas. So that's a plus there. So even without being disabled veteran, I wouldn't pay any property tax because of the homesteader's credit. Now, there are rules to that. You have to live on the property. There are other certain rules to that, but as long as you're living there on the property, you should be able to get that. Now, if you're buying the house to renovate and rent out, you're not going to get the homesteader's credit. So it has to be you on the property, whoever's buying it, and has to reside on the property. You don't have to be in it. You can be like I was in a fifth wheel, and that should be fine. Now, it had existing sewer, a septic tank, and it had existing, a well. Now that's another thing. If you're living rural, does it have a well? Does anything in the well work? In the case of my well, nothing worked. I had to replace the well pump, the pressure tank, but we're looking at under $500 at the time for that. Still today, you'd be under right around $400 to $500, depending on the type of well. Now, if it's a deep well, those cost a little more. Also here, we have the option of county water. It runs out at the road, and it's piped in. The county has it. It's a big tank, it's clean water. And you can also do that. You have to pay like $700-800 deposit or more to get the meter. And then you pay to get the trench dug to the house, which I'm eventually going to do. But I was told, I got to speak with the guy who built this house. He's passed away now. But he told me when he had that well drilled, I don't remember how far I think it wasn't that deep, about 150 feet. And he said there's a lake under there. And that well's been going since 1980. And I've never had it go dry. A well, even if you have a well and you were to use the option of tapping into the county water, it is good to have a well on your property and keep it functioning. So what I will do is if I ever decide to tap into that, I will keep the well going, because if any of that ever goes down, you still got a water source. And all I have to do, even with no power, I can go over there, bring my generator. I've wired that well pump to 110. I can plug it in. There's an outlet in there. I can plug it in. I've got water. And so you have to think ahead, in a situation like that. And what else do we need to talk about? You got to think about your age. How much work does this property need? Well, I was 47, 48 years old when I bought this. Not in good shape at all. I've since lost a lot of weight. I've dropped 100 pounds in this past year. So weight, if you're overweight severely, you're not going to get much done. Okay, you're probably out of shape. But the house itself, like I said in the previous video, you keep working and you'll be surprised. But, you got to watch what you eat too. But anyway, the upkeep. I live here by myself. So if somebody else, a couple more people were living here, well, that would lighten the workload. But everything is on me. Are you going to get animals? What are you going to do? everything you do when you live rural adds work to your list. I've got chickens, I've got 4 dogs. At one time I had up to 9 dogs. Most of them have passed away now. Had a few show up. You're gonna get dogs that just show up. People dump them. Thunder. We're getting a storm moving in. So, but all in all, you couldn't pay me to live in a city nowadays. No way. They're just, it's too crazy. I feel a whole lot safer living rural. I've always lived rural, but I have lived in cities. I've lived in Vegas. I've lived in Denver, Minneapolis, a lot of big cities because of what I did for a living. But if I could, I would always live way out, outside of the city, usually in the country. And there wasn't many cities, I think, with the exception of Vegas, that I could not live in the city, which I could have found something in Vegas, out in the desert somewhere, but I didn't stay there but a few years. So, but going back to probate properties, I bought this 11 years ago, so I'm sure they're being snatched up pretty quick now. I don't even know. I haven't even, I'm not interested in buying any more property. I have been tempted to stop in and just to ask what they have, because up until the last 2 years, you could still pick up dirt cheap properties around here. But I would not expect to find something for what I paid for it, $10,500. I think those days are over. I've noticed, every listing that goes up around here is 50 grand minimum. 50 grand minimum. And I think that has to do with the realtors, not necessarily the worth of the property. Because some of these properties they're asking, I just laugh. I laugh because they're asking $50,000 for houses that were in worse shape than the one I found this. When I found this, they're in worse shape than that now, and they're asking $50,000. And you want to hear the worst part? The people are snatching them up like that. There was 8 acres right here, all wooded, and the lady lives in California, and nobody's lived there since the 70s. Has 2 wells on it, but it's just totally all wooded. She listed it for $50,000, and I was seriously thinking it, and then I seen the price. I'm like, that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy what they're asking. And a few days later, a guy pulls up in my driveway wondering where that was, that he's got some out-of-state people interested, and it's sold. I hear them over there messing around, chainsaws, and so somebody's doing something. So now is the time. If you're looking to buy, and another way to buy that is popular around here is contract by owner, land contract. I am not a big fan of that because, it's to me, it's kind of like renting. Until you've paid it off, it's like renting, but it's a better option than renting. And you have to investigate who the company is you're buying from, and what they're doing is a lot of these old timers that have 100, 200 acres, they're dying. They're passing away and leaving their land to their children who have no interest in doing anything with the land, and they're splitting it up and they're selling parcels. And so that is what they're doing, the contract for land deed contract. And I do know a lot of people that have purchased that way, and so far it's worked out well for them, but that ain't for me. I want to own it as quick as I can and be done with it. And I don't want a payment, and I don't want a mortgage, and I don't have a payment. I don't have a mortgage. All I have is my utility bills. That is another thing. Here, utilities are fairly cheap. I have never had an electric bill, winter or summer, over $150 here. Now, it's only 900 square feet. I've added more to it, but I'm running 2 window unit ACs. I'm running on an electric fireplace type heaters in the winter all the time. And that's the highest my bill has ever been. And when the power goes down, they're usually very quick to get it back up, with the exception of last week. Something big happened where the power was out for 12 hours. But of the 11 years I've lived here, that's only happened a few times. So, but if you got any more questions, let me know in the comments. If you haven't seen my other video where I talk about buying a probate property, that will be the one before this one. Otherwise, y'all have a good day. Happy trails.